we translate. What we are trying to do is actually getting into a very complex terrain, and we are trying to situate the cultural context, the cultural weightage of an utterance, and then we are trying to translate or transcreate that particular thing to the language, from source to the target. So where language meets culture, where politics intersects with linguistics, and where the act of translation becomes an act of cultural negotiation. So it's not literally like film subtitles. It's not like news readers, when they read news, the transcription comes below the video. It's not like advertisement slogans being translated. It's more like creating a new work of art. So it's an act of translation. This.
Vaishu, please mute somebody's.
Yeah, pardon. Some Agrahari G is. Yeah. All right. So translation becomes an act of.
I should try muting that button.
All right, thank you. So my topic, culturalizing translation and translating culture, problems in transcreation. Actually, what I'm trying to do is taking all of you or taking us deep into one of the most challenging domains of literary translation. So it's not like translating a newspaper article. It's not like translating a film text. It's more like translating a novel, translating a short story, translating a cultural material. So I begin my lecture with a key question to all of us. How do we preserve the cultural soul of a text while making it accessible and meaningful to a completely different cultural audience? So a person who reads a specific text, for example, a Karisal literary text, or a Kongu literary text, or Perumal Murugan's Madhur Bhagan, or Perumal Murugan's any other text, or Jayamogan's text, or Imayam's text, Bama's text, or any kind of Tamil text with some kind of socio-cultural context within it. How will you expect an English audience, a reader from England, a reader from America, a reader from Spain, a reader from France to understand such a culturally loaded text? So how do we preserve this particular cultural soul of a specific text when we are trying to make it accessible and meaningful to a specific, completely different cultural audience or a reader? This is the key question, and with this question, I'm proceeding further to explain the challenges in transcreating texts that are very much culturally loaded. So, what are the foundational concepts that we can think about when we think of this key question? The first foundational concept is translation versus transcreation. How do we distinguish translation and transcreation? Translation focuses on linguistic accuracy, maintaining fidelity to the source text literal meaning. So when somebody says S.P. Balasubramaniam is the famous Tamil singer, is no more than we can simply translate and we can show our fidelity to the source text, the literal meaning of this particular statement. That will do, then that is enough for a simple translation. Whereas transcreation goes beyond words to recreate the emotional impact, cultural resonances, and say intended effect of the original message in the target culture. So the cultural dimension is the place where transcreation differs largely from translation. And then what is this cultural dimension, and why does it create a new specific subgenre, which is transcreation, far fetched from, far removed from translation, the original mother genre? The culture manifests in a language through various things. For example, culture manifests itself through idioms and proverbs, culturally specific things like riddles, bedtime stories, grandma's tales, folk tales, or it can manifest itself through social hierarchies and relationships. Very good example in Tamil is we have a term Sami, but the Sami cannot be transferred to master. It cannot be transferred to it cannot be translated as God. It cannot be translated as master. It cannot be translated as something else, boss or something else, because the word alone will not determine the meaning of it. Because if somebody who is working as a peasant and he addresses the landlord as Sami, then it has a different kind of a meaning. Whereas when we visit a rustic temple and we say Sami is inside the temple, then that is a different kind of it gets a different kind of a meaning, altogether different from the earlier meaning. So it is the social hierarchy and relationship that decides the meaning of this very, very short, simple term. Same way, it also manifests through religious and philosophical frameworks. And it also manifests through various other seemingly trivial things, but very important things like food, rituals, and daily practices, and all these things. So, for example, Tamil, with its 2000 or 3000 plus year of literary tradition, carries very deep cultural layers that precisely don't exist in English context at all. So what are the challenges that we face as translators when we try to translate or transcreate a very heavily culturally loaded text from one of the oldest classical languages to a very modern language like English? Then there are several challenges that we need to address, we need to discuss. In that aspect, challenge number one is the culturally embedded vocabulary. What do I mean by culturally embedded vocabulary? India's literary tradition stretches back centuries, and modern Indian literature developed through the translation and imitation of Western masterpieces during colonial rule. Yet, literatures that deal with the peripheries, the people of the outskirts, or the working class people, peasants, disenfranchised people, or transgender people, disabled people. So literature that deals with the lives of these people, the lay people, by and about India's most marginalized communities. Such a literature remains in its infantile stage compared to mainstream Indian literature like Kalidas, Tagore, Bankim Chandra, and Raja Rao, and R.K. Narayan, like canonical writers and their works. So even when the writers from the fringes critiqued centuries-old oppressions with unprecedented vigor, their works largely and often purposefully remained unnoticed. So this kind of a neglected work, or this kind of a negligence per se, cannot be attributed merely to translation problems. Rather, it represents an extended practice of untouchability against this kind of a literature itself. Let me be clear. Any conception of Indian literature in translation remains almost incomplete without this large body of narratives representing a vast segment of persecuted communities. For example, when you talk about canon, the first rung of canonical literary critics, or who were with these kinds of canonization process, which was very much positive in the post-World War period, like T.S. Eliot, F.R. Lewis, Yeats. All these people were busy canonizing works, and then throwing these works outside Europe for translating them and propagating it, disseminating them across the world. When they did it, they used a very specific statement, especially F.R. Lewis. I'm quoting that he was using a very few educated minority people alone can appreciate literature, which means the white European people, or people who had that European Christian humanistic tradition, that consciousness, those people alone can read and appreciate literature. And then when they say that this kind of a group is a cultured group, they already declared the rest of the group as uncultured, uncivilized, uneducated, and all kinds of things. So what happens? Cultural studies that sprang up in the 1960s, it actually tries to destabilize this kind of a canonical study, and therefore cultural study is nothing but a counter canonical or anti-canonical, anti-classical, anti-establishment, anti-national, if that national is a constructed nationhood. So this kind of a revolution happened, and as a result of it, it was an age of translation that all kinds of Russian novels, Russian short stories, Russian works have been translated and disseminated all over the world. And in the third world countries, people who actually were sharing their lived experiences, they also started writing, and those works were also being translated, and they were also seeing publications. So the translation of these culturally loaded works, both fictional and non-fictional, is inevitable for enhancing any kind of literature's development and promoting its spread abroad and within India or abroad across different cultural and linguistic boundaries. So this kind of when you try to translate works, or when you try to involve in the process of translating works of art, then you cannot just go for the canonical works alone, and you need to go for the culturally marginalized texts also. That was the first important thing that happened in the 1960s, especially with the proliferation of the prominent works by E.P. Thompson, Eric Hobsbawm, and others. So what happens with this, what I call this cultural untranslatability, when languages cannot quite meet? How will we overcome this kind of a thing? Have you ever tried to explain a joke from your own language to someone who speaks a different language? Because usually we just speak to students from multiple linguistic backgrounds. So when I speak to a Bengali student, I try asking that student, what did she have for a breakfast and lunch, how is she, all these things, a very basic day-to-day conversational things that I try to translate to her. Or when I speak to her in Tamil and then she asks for a translation, I just try to translate it to English, and from English she may try to translate it to Bengali, and then. But have we ever tried explaining jokes from our own language to someone else who speaks a different kind of language? Not closely related languages like Tamil, Malayalam, and Telugu, like that. It's like sharing a joke that is in typical Tamil to a person who is a Marathi or a person who is a Bengali. Have you ever tried? And if at all we try, and we only to realize that no matter how you rephrase it or refashion it, something essential is lost. It's the way that all kinds of, we all sleep peacefully after watching Vadivel jokes or Kaundamani Sendil jokes, but if someone else who doesn't know this language watching, even with subtitles or whatever it is, even with your translation or whatever it is, they won't enjoy the same kind of joke the way we enjoy. So this is the problem with translating something that is very much culturally rooted. So perhaps you have or we have struggled to find the right word in English for a feeling or concept that exists perfectly in another language. That is what exactly we call cultural untranslatability, and it reveals something profound about the relationship between language, thought, and culture. Like Sashur was talking about the tree, the famous example with which he was trying to discuss his structuralism. Tree, that the sound tree has the object tree means the real tree has it is not at all present in the utterance tree, the sound tree. But as Derrida says, we always use a sound or a word for the purpose for which it is not meant. So when I say tree, unless you know English and in your mind you carry that physical object tree in your mind, you don't understand what I utter. For example, there is a sound. I don't say word, but there's a sound. Katte means binding two things together, tying things together. And the kaira katte means binding two things together. But the cut, if you write in English, C-U-T, cut, then it carries an exactly opposite meaning of cutting and severing one thing into two pieces. So, for example, in a wedding ceremony, if someone is sitting and he doesn't know Tamil at all, the taliya cut means he will ask you for a scissor and he'll cut it. So, because this same very simple sound, not a word, it's a sound. That sound has one meaning in one language, and it has an altogether opposite meaning in a modern language. So this is just an example. We have a lot of such things. So what we are trying to translate every time when we translate a text is not word, but only the dhoni, the sound, the voice. So that voice has some kind of a cultural, source within it. That cultural source is very much required to translate even simple utterances. So that is why I say it has a profound, relationship between language, thought, and culture. But then, how do you define this untranslatability? Let's start with a working definition. Cultural untranslatability occurs when a word or phrase or concept from one language cannot be adequately expressed in another language without losing the significant semantic, cultural, emotional content. So with what emotion somebody utters the sound, and with what cultural backdrop that a person is speaking to somebody or uttering a statement, what is the semantic, semantic significance of that particular utterance? So it's not just drawing the meaning and translating it to some other audience, which is useless. So that along with learning the meaning, drawing the meaning of an utterance, then trying to cull out the cultural significance, and then about the emotional context, then only you can try to translate things which has already become a transcreation. So it's important to clarify what we mean by cannot be translated, because quite often when we stuck in a place and no, this cannot be translated to English because this kind of an utterance is non-existent in the English linguistics, then people say, no, this cannot be translated at all. So we are not talking about impossibility in an absolute sense, but with enough explanation, context, and circumlocution, we can convey almost anything and everything. So rather, untranslatability shouldn't be misconstrued as cannot be translated, but it refers to the absence of a very direct equivalent expression when the translation requires elaborate explanation, or when something essential, say about the original meaning, inevitably gets lost in the transfer of a text. So there are two main types of untranslatability. Linguistic untranslatability occurs when the structure or grammar of one language has no parallel in the other. So it's like Raman kadaikku ponan, you cannot translate the same way. Raman, then kadaikku shop, then ponan goes. So that the order gets disrupted because that structure is not available in the target language. So the linguistic untranslatability, but it is little manageable when you compare this to a cultural translatability, because it has only to do with the structure or the grammatical the framework of one language which has no parallel with the other language. Whereas cultural untranslatability, the focus shifts to a different kind of thing, because cultural untranslatability happens when a word or expression is so deeply rooted in a specific cultural context that other cultures lack, or not just the word, but the underlying concept or experience itself. For example, when you talk about a system like sati, which is not at all existing in the Western world. So when you talk about this kind of pushing somebody who is a widow to the funeral pyre of the husband with a simple, very, very short utterance sati, then it has absolutely no equivalent in English, the word. And the context also the context also doesn't have any kind of equivalent, cultural equivalent in the target culture, the target culture. So why this untranslatability matters a lot when you try to translate something? Why should we care about untranslatability? First and foremost, it challenges the assumption of linguistic universality, because we all think that all languages are deeply connected, and the idea that all languages are merely different codes for the same underlying thoughts. No. Each and every linguistic tradition is conditioned by the cultural negotiations that keeps going on in a language, in a linguistic tradition, updating it, modifying it, pushing it front and back, and a lot of things are taking place. Some languages are easily accommodating all kinds of modern scientific terms and terms related to technology, but some languages are very, very conservative, which are non-accommodative. So it cannot be homogenized. It cannot be assumed that all these languages are merely different kind of codes for the same. So untranslatable words suggest that language does not just label pre-existing concepts. It actually shapes what concepts are available to us. And secondly, the untranslatability has practical implications for international relations, for literature, for law, for diplomacy, for global business. So misunderstandings arising from very poor translations can have serious consequences. For example, in Tamil, when we serve in a marriage feast, or when some guests arrive at your house, we say, we serve them in banana leaf, and we ask them, please feel free to have your food. Kuchapadama sapdunga means when somebody who doesn't have the cultural backdrop of this Tamil hospitality, if he knows only the semantic substance of this particular utterance, and he doesn't know the cultural context of it, and if he wants to translate it to English, because he's an expert only in English, but he knows a little bit of semantic of Tamil, then what happens? Kujapadama Sapdanga means eat shamelessly, like that, he will translate. So this kind of translations sometimes become a butt of ridicule, and sometimes people will mock at the way in which some texts are translated. So let me share some compelling examples across different categories. I don't know whether anybody is a non-Tamil here, because I have more of Tamil examples. But if you want, I can give from other languages to English also. But then, let me continue with the Tamil examples. If there is a problem, I'll explain it later. So this untranslatable words provide some kind of support for linguistic relativity. If a language has a specific word for a concept, speakers of that language may more readily notice and conceptualize that experience. I'll reduce it to this way. This doesn't mean speakers of other languages cannot understand the concept when it is explained. They simply don't have it readily available in their linguistic toolkit. So that, like translation theorists like Eugene Nida distinguished between formal equivalence, means matching form and structure, and dynamic equivalence, matching effect and function. So this untranslatability often forces translators to choose dynamic equivalence, preserving meaning and also cultural context rather than the literal wording. So I repeatedly feel, and I repeatedly say, I want to reiterate the same point, that when we translate something, we are not translating the word but only the sound. And sound means the toni, the sound means the voice, the cultural voice, the social voice. So that voice is very, very important when we involve in translation. Professional translators employ several strategies. They might borrow the word directly and provide context, as the English has adopted Schadenfreude on German term, Zeitgeist, all these things. So they might create what is popularly called neologism, offer a descriptive phrase, or use cultural substitution, replacing a cultural specific reference with something meaningful to the target audience. For example, in Tamil we have Thali, which means the divine cord that is tied around the neck of the bride by the groom in the marriage, and she continues to wear it throughout her life. So that's Thali. But when you use the transliterated Thali, instead of using the divine cord across the neck of a bride or these lengthy things, and when such an italicized word goes outside Tamil Nadu, perhaps to North India, then it has a different meaning, which is very, very casual, day-to-day food, and it has no spiritual significance. It has no relationship with marriage or anything of that sort. So in our globalized world, we are actually seeing more loan words being adopted across languages, enriching our collective vocabulary. So this linguistic borrowing can be seen as evidence that untranslatability creates a kind of semantic gap that cultures recognize and sometimes choose to fill by importing the word itself. So as we navigate an increasingly connected world, understanding and translatability helps us communicate more effectively and develop a deeper cultural humility. When we encounter a word that has no equivalent in our language, we are not just learning vocabulary, we are being offered a glimpse into another way of being human. So Tamil has, one of the world's most elaborate kinship systems with specific terms for relationships, and many of you would have experienced this particular thing. For example, there is a word mama, maman, and it has to be translated as maternal uncle. You cannot simply translate it as uncle. Then there is a confusion. Not just this uncle is not at all an equivalent for maman, because the same maman can be father-in-law also. So this mama is not just maternal uncle. It is also used as father-in-law. It is also used for father-in-law. Same way, attai is paternal aunt, because in English you don't have any distinction between chitti, attai, and all are referred to as aunt only. All chittappa, mama, and all referred to uncle only. But here you cannot use it sparingly as uncle, aunt, because you have a specific kinship-related terms. Machan is a very, very unique term in English. In Tamil, where everybody uses machan. And if you just transliterate it as MACCAN, then people will be puzzled to know what is that machan and why someone calls this person machan. So this you have to say brother-in-law. Then again, it has some problem. It's wife's brother. Who is a brother-in-law? Wife's brother. This Ani, elder brother is his wife. All kinds of very, very specific, context-oriented, culture-oriented, tradition-oriented terms are there in this language. So English basically collapses these into generic terms like uncle means uncle only. Whatever relationship, chittappa, mama, all these fellows are uncle only. Aunt or brother-in-law, and losing the precision that indicates family structure and social relationships. So transcreation, when we transcreate something, the challenge is, do we use the Tamil term with explanation or footnotes, or sacrifice the specificity for a general kind of readability? Whether it is allowed in transcreation, can we simply put uncle and leave it that way, and whatever the reader reads and interprets, let them take, whether it is, let them treat it as chittappa or mama. That doesn't affect the plot of the story or the content of a text. That way, can we leave it? It's a big question, and it's a big challenge also. And some other words, I give you some words as examples also. There is a word karunai. This karunai is often translated in many works as compassion, but carries connotations of, in some places, divine grace, mercy. And then what we notice here is a spiritual dimension is completely absent in the English word. So when you translate mercy, when you translate compassion, it simply tries to capture the semantic of this karunai, but it doesn't carry with it the spiritual dimension of the Tamil word karunai. Same is the case with Sangati. When Bama was titling her work as Sangati, can we simply mean there's a matter or a situation or a thing or an affair, depending on the context only, with emotional undertones only, you can relate this word and you can draw the meaning of this particular Sangati. Otherwise, Sangati you can simply say it's a matter, it's news, it's whatever it is. Same is the case with, for example, a word like pasam. Pasam has no equivalent in English language at all. In English, it's only kadal, pasam, all kinds of human emotions have only one thing, like love. But pasam, the affection, but specifically familial love with overtones of a kind of protective concern and attachment is there when you use pasam. உண்மையிலே எனக்கு என் மேல உனக்கு பாசம் இருக்கா means it is not. Do you have affection? No, it is not there. That doesn't convey the actual emotional meaning attached to this pasam, attached to this question. There is a protective concern. There's an attachment, attached to this very simple term pasam. And when you talk about this food and ritual terms also, we are confusing the target readers when we translate some culturally loaded terms like pongal. Pongal, how will you translate pongal? You can transliterate it, and you can give a footnote like it's a rice dish, all kinds of. But does it really represent the harvest festival where it is prepared? Or is it does it represent the ritual offering? Does it represent or does it talk about its own symbol of prosperity and things like that? When you say pongalo pongal, then it means it is not this ordinary rice dish. When you say pongal pola, means it is a symbol of prosperity. So it carries a lot of, multiple connotations are there, and that the exact meaning of that utterance can be fixed and determined only by mining the deeper cultural, emotional context. Same way, there is a folk dance form called kummi. It's also a social gathering. It's a women's space. And it's a cultural transmission medium also. இவங்க 4 பேர் சேர்ந்து என்ன கும்மி அடிச்சிட்டாங்க means it is not to be translated as these 4 women danced around me in their own space in a social gathering. It's a very, very awkward translation of that particular utterance. Same way you have the honorifics and the social register. And when you translate something from Tamil to English, it has elaborate honorific systems that don't map at all onto English structures. For example, this verbal honorifics, like Tamil verbs change based on the social status of the person being addressed to. Thambi va, please come here, my dear brother. Thambi va. But Anna, Vanga, so it is, but when you translate it to English, it remains the same only. And you don't have anything other than come. This difference between va, which is informal, and Vanga, which is which has a marker of respect. When you invite an elderly person with Vanga, but a friendly person as va, you cannot distinguish, you cannot differentiate when you translate it to English, because it doesn't have this kind of the honorifics. So what happens, and then beyond these two things, there is one more thing which is very formal and highly respectful, varungal, which is a very formal Tamil, and for everything, varungal, vanga, va, for everything you have only come. The social nuance disappears when it is translated to English. So the pronominal distinctions are also very, very difficult when it comes to this untranslatability. Ni, ningal, both are translated to you only. You don't have any other term to distinguish ni, which is informal, and ningal, which is very much formal, with a respect. So the choice between them indicates, say, age hierarchy, social status, the intimacy level is also there. All these things are, you have to think about all these parameters when you translate this ningal to a new language, to a different language, but that language doesn't have all these things. So the transcreation strategy, how to overcome these challenges, and how to use strategies to involve in a good transcreation. Some translators add sir, madam, or descriptive phrases to compensate for lost honorifics. But this can feel artificial also. For example, Vanga means you have only please come, but they will add please come, sir. So that is not, I don't think that will compensate the lost honorifics. Because, and then the original Tamil dialogue, for example, might read like Anna, Ninga eppo varuveenga? And the literal translation is brother, when will you come? But this misses the term Anna indicates elder brother or a respectful address to an elderly person. But this is missing. And Ningal shows respect despite the familial intimacy. He is my Anna only, but I am not saying Va Anna, it's Vanga Anna. So the entire social dynamic of younger to elder communication, this hierarchical communication, matters a lot, and it continues to be a very, very big challenge for trans creators. And you have problems with we have problems with idioms, proverbs, and figurative language, culturally rooted idioms. I give you a small example. Kannil padadavan manadil padamatan is a proverb, and if you translate it literally, he who does not fall on the eyes won't fall on the mind. This is what is the literal translation of it. But when you transcreate it, it's the original dhwani should be retained in the target language and the transcreated stuff also. So it can be translated as out of sight, out of mind. So the entire structure and metaphor work differently. English idiom exists, but many do not have equivalents. So this kind of, for example, the famous Tamil proverbial wisdom, Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir, the famous saying of Kaniyan Pungundranar, which is now popularly extensively quoted and even used as party slogans, Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir. It's nothing but universal brotherhood. It's nothing beyond that. But we cannot translate it, like every town is my own, everyone is my kin, which is not the exact translation of Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir. So the cultural weight, the ancient Tamil humanistic philosophy, because this translation must convey not just meaning, but 2,000 years of the brotherhood, the universal brotherhood philosophy of the Tamils, the cultural resonance, and so it's very, very difficult to translate all these things and maintain the original being. Showing fidelity to the original is very, very difficult. And you have the Tamil literature is saturated with references to Hindu mythology, Sangam poetry, and very devotional bhakti traditions. So, for example, comparing someone to Thiruvallur implies wisdom and ethical conduct. But an English reader is unfamiliar with this cultural icon, miss the entire reference. So, whatever you translate, the reader who doesn't know Thiruvallur, who doesn't know the treatise, who doesn't know the philosophy of Valluvur, what kind of a meaning can he or she draw from this kind of translation is always a big challenge, not just for the trans creator, but also for the person who consumes that particular translation. And you have another big problem when it comes to classical Tamil poetry, which uses Thinai system, like landscapes that correspond to emotional states. Like Rasa theory, you have your own classical Thinai theory. You have Kurinji, you have Mullai, you have Mardam, you have Neidal, you have Palai. But when a Tamil text references these landscapes, it invokes an entire emotional and aesthetic framework, because English has absolutely zero equivalent system when it comes to these divisions of the landscapes and things like that. So meter and even when it comes to English seasons, then there is a very big complex issue. So then you have the poetry is complex metrical patterns like Venba, Asiriya Virutam, this and that cannot be preserved in English translation at all. So the musicality of the meanings can be carried over, but the musicality of the language, the dhwani of the language is completely lost. So the Tamil poetry, sometimes, for example, if it uses Mudal Eluthu Ottrumai, the initial sound repetition extensively, this wordplay rarely survives translation. And you have this diaglossia, what you call in Tamil the Vattara Moli, the regional dialects against the Senthamil, the classical literary Tamil. So Tamil has a terribly extreme diaglossia. The gap between spoken and written forms is vast like anything. Basakiswarma, how will you translate this? I'm asking you. Basakiswarma means how will you translate this particular thing? Tiki kudikiringla. This kind of a diaglossia can never ever be translated to any other language, because there is no such musicality, there is no such clipping of words in any other language equivalents. And in spoken Tamil we say, for example, na saapitten, I ate. But in literary Tamil, nan undeen, nan unavu undeen, then again you have to say the same thing, I ate only, in the formal register also. But in very regional diaglossia, na saapitten means it's not even saapitten or undeen, it is na saapitten. So this colloquial contraction is yet another problem, a challenge for a translator. So should the translator use a standard English or a dialectical English or formal literary English? So when you are given with this many kind of very complex choices, each choice creates different reader experiences and loses different aspects. So this code, how to face these kinds of challenges and how to overcome all these challenges, translators for ages they have been trying to negotiate with all these challenges, and they were trying to bring something close to the original when they try to involve in the process of transcreation. For example, the concept of code switching for modern Tamil often includes English words. Na office ku poren, then I'm going to office. This code switching reflects a kind of contemporary bilingual reality, but it's very difficult to represent the same thing in English translation without seemingly redundant, because there is no Tamil at all in the utterance, in most of the day-to-day utterances. Na office ku ponen, bus la vanden, coffee kudichen. So there is one word in English and one word in Tamil. And இன்னைக்கு நகத்தை கட் பண்ணேன், this பண்ணேன், this is also, this பண்ணுதல் is also a very complex kind of a Tamil suffix that we attach to all kinds of words. So this code switching is a big problem, because it poses a different kind of a challenge to a translator. Let me illustrate these challenges with some concrete examples from say 3 of the significant Tamil works that I have worked on. For example, from K.A. Gunasekaran's Vadu, the scar. Consider the sentence, Settalum Marandeki poi sahana. This is a statement which every dying old age person utters. Especially when they migrate to their ward's house in an urban space, they usually say, எனக்கு இங்க இருக்கவே பிடிக்கல, ஒரு மாதிரி இருக்கு, நான் செத்தாலும் என் ஊருக்கு போய் சாகணும். So செத்தாலும் மாறாந்தைக்கு போய் சாகணும், which was translated by the translator as let me die after I reach Marandai. And you can see how much distortion has happened with this particular utterance. Here the conditional clause in Tamil has been converted into a direct statement. It should have been, if at all I die, I should die after reaching Marandai. But the translator has translated it as let me die after I reach Marandai. This is how the nuance, the speaker's conditional hope is lost in the translation. And in another sentence, காட்சி கண்டி போய் வடு ஒன்று இருக்கு. The hand in which, with your continuous use of spade and crowbar and things like that, or the hands will develop this kind of a scar. So காட்சி கண்டி போய் வடு ஒன்று இருக்கு appears in translation simply as there is a scar. Because this kachi, kandi, poi, these things you cannot, the translator could not add anything to this particular scar. So the long illustration of the scar's nature has been completely omitted. And the sentence, in another place, the sentence, inga paru karupa, Yadak Madaka Pesada. This Yadak Madaka Pesada becomes, look here, Karpa, don't be impertinent. This impertinent, a very sophisticated English equivalent, can that be the right kind of, the appropriate kind of translation for Yadak Madaka Pesada? It raises a lot of questions, but the impertinent fails to capture the colloquial essence of Yadak Madak. So these are not mere translation choices. They are cultural compressions that flatten the richness of the original. So when you translate these things to English, you are trying to flatten the cultural compressions because of your lack of finding equivalent expressions in the target language. And similarly in Bamas's Karukku, the Tamil utterance, at one place, she says, அவன் 4 போடு அவன் சரியாயிடுவான். This 4 போடு was translated as give her 4 severe blows. It is not giving severe blows, physical blows. 4 போடு சரியா போயிடுவான் அல்லது ஓடி போயிடுவான் means, in Tamil context, this expression does not necessarily mean physical beating. It can mean severe scolding or verbal abuse. அவன் 4 போடு போட்டேன் நீ காலையில means I haven't beaten him. I have just abused him with just 4 slangs. So for example, consider expressions like Koola Gila Kudichittu va veliki means Koola, okay, the kanji, the gruel. Koola Gila Kudichittu va means kanji ginji kudi. These colloquial conventions of double words with slight alterations. How a translator can play with these kinds of things. Possibly the translator Lakshmi Holstrom, when she translated Bamas's Karukku, could only partially capture these and even translated kanji as gruel in one place and cool in another place, creating a kind of ambiguity in the text, in the translation. And the phrase Sara Saraya disappeared entirely in the translation of a longer sentence. The expression even or soha pudicha paya was rendered as melancholic boy. Melancholic boy is not the soha pudicha paya. Because you would have read Ibsen's The Ghost, where you find this Soha Pudichapaya, but he's not melancholic and all. So, but Sohe implies inactive, very dull, but not sadness. He's dull, but he's not sad. He's all alone, but he doesn't suffer from loneliness. So you should try to understand the meaning of that particular Tamil word first. So these distinctions matter a lot. They carry cultural weight that changes the meaning. And I give you a few more examples from Pomani's cremation, Taganam. Here I can speak from my personal experience as the translator. There is a word, Patam Patamai. He was referring to the rioters, the Kalavarakkargal, Patam Patamai Vandargal. It refers to the rioters as attacks. So the expressions like Kapi Kipi Kudichitu Ponga, in the road la Vandi Gindi Varapogudhu, represent the typical Tamil stylistic device. It's unavoidable in rural Tamil, usage. So English has no such usages. English has no such clubbing of two words to give it a rhythmic kind of an effect, rustic, in rustic usage. So I managed by translating Patam Patamai as intermittent, but something was terribly lost, and I regret for that loss, because I couldn't put it in any other way. And when I translated Nilaikollada Kakai Parvai as uncertain looks resembling a crow's look, Pomani himself was not entirely happy with that particular utterance. And various, in another place, various lethal weapons like Katte Kambu, Vel Kambu, Vicharival, Pattakati, all these things were typical, unique, very peculiar Tamil lethal weapons. And these weapons do not have equal weapons or similar weapons in any other context. So you cannot find, you cannot replace Vicharival with something else, a spear, or Pattakati as a knife. No. So it became short logs, spears, and sickles and swords, not at all exact equivalents, as some weapons from Tamil context simply don't exist at all in the Western context. So how, after having undergone these many challenges when we try to translate texts from Tamil to English or from any other regional language to English, or English to Tamil, strategies for effective transcreation. This is only an idea that I am trying to doctor with the experience that we gain through acts of transcreation. First of all, the strategy for effective transcreation is domestication versus foreignization. So what do I mean by domestication? Is adapting cultural references to target culture. For example, there is a word Vinayagar. Vinayagar can be converted to the elephant-headed deity for clarity. Foreignization retains the source cultural elements, keeping Vinayagar as such and providing a context preserving the cultural specificity. It is not translating Vinayagar into an elephant-headed deity. Converting Vinayagar into elephant-headed deity is what I call the domestication of that particular word. But foreignization doesn't do that. Foreignization keeps Vinayagar as Vinayagar, and it provides a kind of context, and it helps us. It helps the readers understand what is Vinayagar and why do we call him Vinayagar, and all kinds of things. So when you involve in this foreignization, It's very safe, but it is not convincing, like domestication. Foreignization can be achieved by giving some paratextual support like glossaries, footnotes. For example, Tali is used as THALI, but you are giving a footnote that Tali means this in the Tamil cultural context. So you have to give a list of glossary and then footnotes, then contextual explanation, cultural introductions, compensatory strategies, all these things. So when one cultural element cannot be translated, when I was trying to put a glossary for Pumanis's Piragu, he was very much outrightly objecting to the usage of glossary or any of these things, because he says, as we read the English novel and we don't understand the cultural significance or the semantic of a word, are we not getting into a dictionary and try to find out the meaning and the historiography and the sociology of such a thing? And let people who do not understand what is this in Tamil context, let them find it out by referring to dictionary or by browsing in the web or any kind of, let them break their head and try to find out the meaning. Why do you support them with all these things? Why do you provide them with this kind of a paratextual support? Let them struggle. Let the reader suffer when he reads or when she reads this kind of a thing. And as we suffer when we read Milton's Paradise Lost, are we understanding Milton's Paradise Lost, all the 12 books with our first reading? No. Without the help of a dictionary, without referring to the Bible, without referring to all Western epistemology, we don't understand that. So it's a different kind of an approach to transcreation. But there are compensatory strategies which most of the translators are trying to indulge in. When one cultural element cannot be translated, add richness elsewhere to maintain that overall cultural texture. That's one way of approaching transcreation. And you can also have this target audience consideration, because most of the Tamil publishing houses, they do not want the translators to bring in all the nuances that are available in a European text, like Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. When somebody translated, sir, why do you translate all these nuances, bits and pieces of these things, page by page, word by word? No, we don't want it. We just want you to compromise, and target audience consideration should be taken care of. A Tamil reader, when he reads, he should not know that this text is translated from 100 Years of Solitude to Tamil. No. He should have the feeling that he's reading a Tamil novel. That kind of, so the academic readers, they just, they're more foreignization, detailed notes, glossary, all these things are required for academic readers. For general readers, who are non-academics, but a common man who is reading the novel of Anton Chekhov, the plays of Anton Chekhov, the works of Dostoevsky, when a general reader reads it, there should be more domestication and smooth readability. It is what I refer to as culturalizing translation and translating the culture. So this kind of domesticating a text and making it readable, converting it to suit the target audience, that is one specific strategy which is used by translators who are usually translating English text to Tamil, for Tamil readers. And you also have this diaspora audiences, means there is a balance between familiarity and cultural preservation. It's very difficult to maintain this particular thing. And beyond all these things, for marketing, for advertising, and for creative content, the focus on equivalent emotional impact is to be taken care of rather than the linguistic fidelity. I give you an example. A Tamil ad slogan playing on Amma, for example, Amma. might be transcreated to focus on home or tradition in English, capturing the emotional resonance rather than the literal meaning mother. So this kind of a thing is also possible when you translate emotionally, controlled, emotionally stuffed, impregnated words. Same is the case with film subtitles also, because Tamil cinema dialogue, which are rich in cultural references, wordplay, and emotional registers, poses unique challenges, and subtitles must be concise but culturally meaningful, because you cannot make it lengthy, because the in a 70 screen, if quarter of the screen is for subtitles, then nobody can enjoy the film, and people who simultaneously, one who watches and reads the subtitles also should be convinced of this preciseness and the conciseness of the subtitles. So these are all certain alternates, that strategies that we use when we translate or when we try to transcreate things. The deeper problem is the cultural semantics. The phrase "Kootathil Maatikondal Avlodan," கொத்துக்கறி போட்டு விடுவார்கள், இப்படி ஒரு ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட் இருக்கு. கூட்டத்துல மாட்டிக்கிட்டோம் அவ்வளவுதான், நம்மள கொத்து பரோட்டா போட்டுருவாங்க மீன்ஸ் it was translated as if they got trapped in the crowd, they would be chopped off. No, it's not a chopped off. Can never ever capture the subtle tone of kothukari or kothu parata, the seriousness mixed with humor. We will be crushed too, like the stampede which occurred in Karur. So the seriousness is there, but at the same time it is conveyed with a lot of sense of humor that should be captured. So the word kothu in Tamil, it couldn't be translated as so. And same way in cremation, when Constable Athiyappan utters, "Sari, inneki kada mudinjichu." The word kadai literally means story, but in the rural context and in this specific context, it euphemistically refers to life and survival. So without understanding this cultural complexity, translation often becomes very much misleading. And Tamil speakers frequently use numbers without literal meaning. I give you an example. Sir, உங்ககிட்ட 2 வார்த்தை பேசி ஆகணும். It doesn't mean having exactly 2 words with someone. It means having a few words. The numeral 2 should not be translated as 2 words. And the last particular thing which I'm trying to talk about is pointedly is the political dimension. These are also not merely linguistic puzzles. They carry profound political implications. I already told you the word Sami, translated as sir, becomes an inappropriate replacement, because in most of the works Sami is translated as sir. Sir has a very, very good secular connotation. But in India, in a caste-ridden Indian society, Sami carries hierarchical, caste-based implications. And in another place, it's only the context that determines the meaning, and culture that determines the context. So a translator should understand this particular thing. Consider another example. வெள்ளச்சி எப்படி இருக்கலாம், அந்த கழுதையை பார்க்கணும் போல இருக்கு. You cannot translate it as how is Velachi, I should see that little donkey. So the expression Kaluda, in every household we used to call our very, very close ones, dear ones, as the Kaluda paru means we are not referring to somebody who is very close to us as donkey. It's a very it's a very lovable way of addressing somebody as in the Kuti Kaludai. All these things. So we cannot translate it as a donkey, because Kaludai was used as a mark of endearment out of sheer love and concern. But the English donkey suggests negativity. It also suggests contempt. So this little donkey in italics was used to suggest the intended affectionate tone, but the warmth is still missing. It's still diminished. So what is the translator's dilemma? Whatever narrative it is, while reflecting the socio-cultural life of people with flesh and blood, with communities, any narrative operates to create space for elevating these people out of enforced kind of subjugation, oppression, whatever it is. So the loss of cultural and political implications in translation risks alienating the text from its very creative purpose when presented to non-Tamil readers. So when you try to deliberately domesticate a text which was talking about the ordeals of a group of people or an individual to another group of people, when you do this particular thing, when you are sacrificing the cultural and political implications, it certainly risks alienating the text from its very creative process, the purpose. So translation from one specific culture to the mainstream culture, from a cultural studies point of view, which is anti-disciplinary, anti-establishment, anti-classical, anti-canonical, to the same canonical culture, should capture the source text's incongruities in ways recognizable and recognized in the target culture. So the local idioms, the culturally significant usages, all these things that have apparent political objectives and resistive functions, these cannot be ignored at all. And these terms are potential linguistic tools of specific indigenous populations. The kapi gipi kudingella very, very specific, and it refers to tradition, it refers to hospitality, it refers to community tradition, shaping their identity, and it also tries to achieve liberation for somebody. So this makes the translator's task even harder to carry the inherent particularities of these regional writings, these writings that were done in regional languages, in different dialects, with their prolific colloquial usages serving purposes of some transformation. So by way of conclusion, I say transcreation between any regional language, for example, Tamil and English, is not merely linguistic gymnastics. It's an act of cultural negotiation, and it requires some 5 specific things, requirements, negotiations. 1, a deep cultural knowledge of both the source and the target things. A very deep cultural knowledge of both the source and the target text. Second, creative flexibility beyond word-for-word translation. Third, ethical awareness of what is gained and what is lost. You cannot just like that sacrifice, who is going to verify this with a German text? Nobody knows German here, and whatever these fellows are reading, they are all Tamil fellows, masses, so they will accept whatever way we translate. No, it's you have a translator has a kind of ethical consideration. So this ethical awareness of what you have gained and what you have lost is very, very important. And fourth, strategic decision making about domestication and foreignization. Where to foreignize something and where to domesticate something without losing anything culturally specific in the source text. And lastly, the fifth one, respect for both cultures without hierarchy. The best part of a translator is you should not think that this culture is in and this culture is out. You shouldn't feel that Tamil culture is superior and English culture is inferior. Or rather, you shouldn't feel that Tamil culture is inferior and English culture is superior. Respect for both cultures without any kind of hierarchization is very, very important for a trans creator. So the trans creator becomes a cultural metaphor, a cultural metaphor, a cultural symbol, a cultural mediator, making thousands of micro decisions that shape, because word by word by word and sound by sound by sound, dhoni by dhoni, you are trying to shape how cultures understand another culture, how cultures understand each other. So in our globalized world, this work is not just important. Transcreation is essential for cross-cultural understanding and connection. So, my dear friends, the point which I want to drive home is every translation is an interpretation, and every transcreation is a new creation that honors the original while addressing a new audience, a new set of readers. So let me conclude with a paradoxical statement. The translation or transcreation is simultaneously impossible and necessary. It's impossible because, as I have already shown you, a faithful translation, a translation that preserves every nuance, every cultural inflection, every political charge cannot be achieved when you transfer one culture into a mainstream canonical language. But it is necessary because without translation, certain powerful voices remain trapped within linguistic boundaries. Their own critique of oppression, their own assertion of dignity, their own reshaping of identity, all confined to those who already share their language. So what is the answer ultimately is a trans creator must be flexible and creative. And the trans creator must mobilize strategies that reveal their allegiance and ideologies. So the trans creator must reflect both the author's culture and their own cultural background. So this translator or trans creator must transplant one culture into another while making it fit. So with this, I just conclude my speech, and the task is really hard, the task is imperfect, but then the task is essential. So thank you so much for your patient listening, and thank you so much, Dr. Colette, for having invited me and for including me in the workshop for learned participants. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, sir. Thank you, Mark, sir.
Especially the subtle nuances of Tamil and English cultural translation, and often how meanings shift or get lost in the process. Thank you, sir.
We never
So
saw.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Now we open the floor for discussion. Participants.
So why is there a necessity to translate a culturally rich text when it is untranslatable? The soul of the text gets lost. So why do you go in for such a translation? So when the writer is alive, for instance, Poomani's translation, so when he sees the translation is not good, in fact, it will pain the creator. And mostly all these texts are read by readers who already know Tamil. So why don't we encourage them to read the original text? So because most of the students and scholars also, they do research in Burma. right? Their knowledge of Tamil is really good. Why do they go in for an translated text? And
No. The readers who are, or the researchers who are into the works of Bama, or anybody for that matter, as you say, they are well versed in Tamil, but their research is in English, for which they go for the English translated version of these works. But let us not confine the readership to Tamil audience or Tamil researchers. There have been multiple, researches going on with undertaken by researchers who have who have zero connection with Tamil culture or Tamil tradition, who has zero knowledge about Tamil language. So for these people, when only canonical text can be made available in English and researchers can be undertaken only on these texts, there is a necessity for translating these texts and trying to make these texts accessible to all readers across the world. That is how in the US, in Canada, and in UK, now Bama is read. If there is no translation of Karuku would have been limited only to this small state, Tamil Nadu. So now with translation only, the voice of Bama means the voice of innumerable marginalized people reached various other parts of the world. But as I said, the writers, the authors are not fully convinced of the translation, or they are not happy and satisfied with the translation. But that shouldn't stop the translators, in their translating these works to and making it accessible to larger audience and larger readers across the world. Because when as we discuss the problems, we are also trying to find out ways to overcome such problems. So when we encounter a 3-year, 4-year-old in 4-year time to complete the process of translating just one work, we don't think that it is a waste of time, or we don't think that it is a big ordeal, or we don't think that it should go this way or that. No, our only objective is to make a very prominent, culturally loaded text that we have this much of experience in Tamil culture, which should be known to readers across the world. So with that objective, when we translate something, of course, we could not translate certain things faithfully to the target language, and we also suffer as the authors suffer. So and the readers also sometimes suffer. So the suffering is sometimes very much universal, because everybody suffers. The author suffers, the translator suffers, and the target audience also suffers. But then the point that we want to make here is the text should be made accessible to a larger group of audience, and the voices of these people which was hitherto denied access to all kinds of other publishing houses, that these same publishing houses are now ready to publish these texts when it is available in English. So that is with that intention only we try very, very hard to translate these texts. But then researchers who are reading the translated versions of Bama, Yimayam, Pomani, all these things, they read in English even when they can read in Tamil. I think the English PhD scholars who are Tamils, but their works are in English. They want to work in English and they want to write their thesis in English. I think it is better to read it in English along with simultaneously Tamil also, and try to find out the challenges and all other things, the translational difficulties also.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? May I now? Anybody has got question?
Good evening, everyone. This is Nagalakshmi from Chennai. working in SDNV Vaishnav College. I have got a question, sir. Yes, sir. My question is, since we are learning English as a second language, almost all of us can take up this venture of translation, but we are not able to take up this even at a smaller level. I have read that even those for some this Tamil is not a mother tongue, and they have learned Tamil and they have translated some works from their mother tongue into Tamil, and they have received a Sahitya Academy Award. So that being the case, Tamil being our mother tongue, and we can very well venture into this translation, but we are not something lagging in us that is not permitting us to take up this translation. Though we have proficiency in 2 languages, only very handful of people are taking this translation. That's what I. What is hindering them? That is my question, sir.
No, this is question. I don't know how to respond, but the thing is, I have seen people who are very, very good at the language, but they are English process, teaching English, and they are well versed in English novels and other things. But very good writers in Tamil. What they do, they read and understand the culture, the cultural content of English novels or English poems and English non-fictional things. Then what they do, they are trying to translate and as I already said, they try to domesticate the same text, and they are very, very good at writing the same thing in Tamil. And they give a feel that when we read that novel, we won't get the feel of reading a translated piece at all, because the choice of words and that the Tamilizing the English novel is what is happening in most of the cases. Same is the case with Tamil English also. We are supposed to Englishize the whole Tamil experience that you find in the Tamil work of art. Why people do not opt for this translation, and why only a handful of people are translating and successfully completing it is, it's such a tedious work. I tell you, it's the place of translating one novel. People say I would have written 4 novels instead of translating one specific novel. It's a time-consuming process when you try to translate from one language to the other, even when you are fluent in both the languages. So it doesn't require language fluency at all. It requires historic. The historical knowledge. It also requires the sociological understanding of both the texts. So it's much more than just translating something from one language to another, which involves linguistic compatibility. So it requires a lot of other factors. So people who are seriously into translation, they basically willing to spend their time and energy on this particular process. I it's a very deep process.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So I have a question, sir.
Yes, yes.
When did you start translating your first book, sir? The last that I saw was 2024, a poetry anthology you had released, no, sir? What was your first book, sir?
No, the first was a short story. Even before that, I translated K. Gunasekaran's Baliyadigal, the Scapegoats, followed by Matram of K. Gunasekaran, which dealt with the lives of transgenders into the change. Then subsequently, I entered the world of Pomani, translating his novel Taganam into Cremation. Then I translated 6 of his short stories into English. Then I started Pomani's Piragu as And Then, which consumed almost 10 years of my career. And then after completing the translation in 6 years, I was waiting patiently for 4 long years, submitting the draft to various publishers, and there was publication politics also. Then finally it was published. So after that, I translated Yalanadis's collected reports.
Forms.
Yes. Right now, I'm translating one English work into Tamil. The ragged, trousered. It's a French text translated into English. It's considered to be the first proletariat novel, working class novel. I'm trying to translate it into Tamil. I'm working on it.
We are proud of you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shall we wind up?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
May I now request Dr. Priya to propose the vote of thanks.
Yes. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the PG and Research Department of English, V.O.Chidambaram College, Thoothukudi, on this 5th day of our International Online Faculty Development Program. First and foremost, I extend a heartfelt gratitude to Dr. T. Marks, Professor of English and Dean of Performing Arts, School of Humanities, Pondicherry University, for his insightful and engaging session on translating culture and culturalizing translation, challenges in transcreation. So, your thought provoking presentation has deepened our understanding of how language, culture, and creativity intersect in translation. Your ideas have truly enlightened us and inspired further academic exploration. I take this opportunity to thank our principal, head of the department, and organizing committee members for their constant support and guidance in making this FDP a great success. A special word of appreciation goes to all the faculty participants from various institutions for their active involvement and interaction throughout the session. Once again, our sincere thanks to Dr. Marks for sharing his expertise and time with us this evening. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, sir. Mark, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.